Good morning. Welcome to the Monday budget workshop today. Okay.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. I've given you some handouts, and so I'd like to go over those. Our topic today is property tax levies.
Okay.
And the road levies. And this is one of our revenue pieces, a significant revenue piece for the county, particularly for the general fund. And so what I'd start with is, and I'm not going to take the whole allotted time probably, unless you just have lots of questions. This is pretty straightforward. Somewhat straightforward. So I have Emily here just in case to back me up, since I'm very new to all this and haven't actually gone through the certification process for road levies and general levies. So your first chart that you have should be county general fund values and county general fund levy amounts. And so this is just a historical to show you the assessed values over a period of time from 2019 to the preliminary, which we have for 2024. And so we've gone from 11.8 million in assessed values to currently 19 million in assessed values. Does it sound right? Okay, hold on.
That's a billion would be.
Oh, billions, not millions, billions. Sorry. Yeah, comma.
What's a zero?
Sorry. 19 billion. We went from 11.8 billion to 19 billion in 2024 for preliminary assessed value. So as you can see, some years the increase was larger than others. So we're showing an increase from 23 assessed values to 24 assessed values of 3.94. And I think that's indicative of what's going on in the real estate market. And so, yes, come sit with me, Emily, since this is my first time talking about levies.
And I'm kind of filling in because Janine is my chief deputy. She does levies.
She is the expert.
She's out of the office. So when she called, I was like, well, I can come try to help. So while she's talking about assessed values, just remember that that is just part of the equation. So you guys set the budget, it gets divided by the total assessed value to get the rate. So all talking about the assessed value is doing is telling you whether or not that rate is going to go up or down.
Right.
On that part.
Yeah, but
Because of the
we're capped.
statutory limit.
But
Yes.
we are capped. If it weren't for new construction, this would be a 1% climb.
Right.
No, the assessed value has no cap on it.
No, I'm talking about the
rate,
levy.
yes.
The levy, yes. And then you look at your levy rates, and these are not in billions, these are in millions. So on your levy rates, you've gone from 18 million to 2024 preliminary is 20,815,000. And so you see the increases are a little bit higher than the 1%, which is the statutory limit, but that's because of new construction. It's also a function of whether previous year, whether you banked some of your capacity, but we've built in for this 2024, we built in, it accumulates. And so it includes that bank capacity. If that makes sense. Because in 2022, you did not take, for example, you did not take your 1% allowed increase.
And we took it in 23.
Well, in 23, yeah, maybe so, but but I think some of I don't think all of it was taken. So,
You have last
Yeah.
year's.
so last year's, no, I don't have it in front of me, but last year's, when we looked at the number, it was taking 0.59% instead of the 1%. Plus new construction. Yeah. So, but the 2024 is the preliminary amount that's available to be levied. Of course, as I said, that's preliminary. And
Yeah.
we'll be finalizing those numbers after, I think, November the 8th.
Hopefully before then.
Okay, hopefully before then, but November the 8th, we can't finalize any of these numbers until all of the values are in.
Is this information on the website? Is it on the assessor's page?
No, so this is all preliminary information. We give this out to the districts just so they can try to kind of see where their stuff's gonna come in for budgeting. As she said, early November is when we're supposed to certify.
Yeah,
the
I'm trying to
rolls.
go someplace.
Oh, but unless she's put it on, ours is not.
Okay, the reason is we get pinged and then you get pinged. And they think that we are cooperating with you to
Right.
feather our beds in
Right.
some way. And this is just the extant information, the 19 through 22 makes it really clear. So whatever the assessed value happens, it really hardly impacts the general fund values.
Right.
We have-
And
we have
people
similar-
don't understand that because they don't want to understand it, because they vote for all the other things that scale up with the assessed value. Like the schools, the levy, the O&M levies, yeah.
We put out an annual report that doesn't have this information because we're not part of your budget process.
Yeah,
But we do show assessed values. We show what different budgets are for the districts. We show the allocation of tax dollars of where it's going. It's just a matter of whether people want to understand the information that's there.
except you don't have the other side of the equation, the levy, or the actual dollar amounts that came into the general fund. Or do you?
I'd be happy if you would like on our budget page, we could put this because it does show you that while assessed values have increased at a higher rate, your levy increases are much lower
Yeah.
than the assessed value increase. If that would be helpful.
I, a big chore I felt was trying to get the public to understand the part they play in things, and this would be a big piece of it.
I was gonna say, on the last page of our annual report is a page, it's called like a story of one house, I think. And we picked one house years and years ago before my time. And it just shows what that particular house has done for assessed value over time. And then it breaks down all the levies they pay and what has changed. So it does show that your value can go down and your taxes can go up, and your value can go up and your taxes can go down. But I don't think we have this particular thing. There's a ton of information. I'll go back and look at the annual report and see if it shows something similar.
Yeah, don't forget that anything longer than a couple of pages is typically cast aside, and I'm not defending it, I just know it is. So this says it all in 2 pages.
This is the only thing I would worry about is I'm trying to disassociate the assessed value from anything that makes it look like a rate is generating the assessed value. So I'm very careful on how we present the information because it's the opposite, right?
Right.
But I'm willing to put information on our website also to help people understand that.
So in the 24, you do not have the 1% increase.
No, it's in there.
It's in there.
It's in there. And so what I'm presenting today is I'm making an assumption that the commissioners will approve a levy that approximates what we're statutorily limited to. and not bank anything is what and that's my recommendation is that we take our fully allotted levy limit and assess that so that we have revenue funds available for such things as the collective bargaining agreements that we have this coming 2024, which we have a lot of those.
So Kathy, you said to assess that 1%. That's not accurate. You
Okay.
want us to levy that
Levy,
1%.
I'm sorry. Not
Assessment
assess.
involves
yeah.
per department and its values. So,
Right.
and but it's an easy term to mix up.
Yeah.
And
The levy.
she was, yeah.
So the other thing, without Janine being here, I'm making an assumption, but I'm fairly certain I'm correct on this. So when she sends out the preliminary values, we haven't closed the rolls. We're still making some adjustments. So there could be minor tweaks to that. Plus, until we are completely finished, they don't give us our state assessed increases or decreases.
And you have one major industry still challenging or
That trial was completed Thursday.
Thursday and no
Yes.
decision yet or
Oh, we should know in hopefully 180 days.
in 180 days?
Yes.
So we
That's a
can't
lot of
budget it.
Thursdays.
So those numbers don't include that assessment.
That's not in here, but the state assessed utilities, so like
Hmm.
BNSF, that gets a state or assessed at the state level and then portioned off to us. So those type of things could change a little bit, but in general, as she said, it's a preliminary number to give you an idea.
And so what I wanted to impress upon the commissioners is that it looks like if we were to take up to our allowed levy amount, that we would be looking at about 600,000 of additional revenue generated for 2024 for general fund.
Would you repeat that?
So if you look at the difference between 2023 levy amount
Oh, got it. All right. I
and
see.
2024 maximum levy amount, based upon preliminary numbers, it's about a $600,000 difference in revenue.
And we still have that 1 year we banked.
Well, that's included in the amount for 2024.
Well, we're taking the one we banked plus the
Yes.
one for that year.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick? So do these numbers include their
In the
road
microphone?
shift?
No, these numbers do not include any shift between the road fund and the general fund
So prior to 22,
too.
I think you guys had shifted every year. And so each year it was a little bit different. I think some were like 2.2. There's one that was three
Three.
something.
Mhm.
You got up to
so
two point five.
These totals down here do not include that shifted money you guys were shifting.
Yeah.
So you guys have gone down on general fund with not taking that shift anymore.
Yeah, I think I heard the chairman some time ago say he would be generally against the levy shift on the roads, and the only, I have no problem with that. I would moderate that, saying circumstances may or may not want us to do something there, but it's important to understand that these levy rates are not budget-based. They're figured out somewhere in Olympia. So in other words, it's kind of an arbitrary number. So to say that we're stealing from the road fund already presumes that there's a magic number that is owed to the road fund. And I have a very hard time trying to figure all that out because we do grants all over the place. So, you know, normally you'd say, okay, we've got this public works maintenance and operation stuff, and that should translate to a dollar amount, and we should levy that on the road fund, but that's not how we operate.
The only thing I would comment on the shift, and again, I'm a proponent of not taking money that you don't need. I was a huge advocate for banked capacity if you don't need it. The only note I would say on the road shift is to keep in mind that when it is county road dollars, you are taking that amount and dividing it by the assessed value in just outside the cities. So the roads is collected from just the county residents, not anybody in the cities. Once you shift that money into
The non-city
general fund-
residents, we're all county residents.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The
Unincorporated
pool is
territory.
way bigger.
Yeah.
So it just changes who is collecting. So when the shift stopped, the people in the county's taxes actually outside the city limits in the county, their taxes went up, and the inside city limits people's taxes would have gone down for that shift.
Do
Or
you,
lack of shift
The shift increases the urban taxes.
in cities.
That's that's the
Yes.
shift.
So by not shifting, it
Right.
increases outside.
do you,
cities.
do you remember offhand, an amount, like, is that statistically $10 per parcel or $1,000 per parcel or?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
your shift was running about 2 million a year, and then it went to 3 million, and then it went to zero shift.
Right, but that doesn't help me answer the question.
The road. The road.
I just.
This
don't
is roads right here.
understand.
Okay. So your assessed. Hold on, I
The
can
history of it.
give you an idea. Assessed value of district. So the assessed value in the roads portion is 10.5 billion. The assessed value in the whole county, everybody, is 19 billion. So you're adding $9 billion worth of distribution.
That isn't particularly helpful for the taxpayer. Because, and you were asking about how the taxpayer is affected. I know that my county assessment portion went down when we stopped the shift. How much did it go down? Not by very much, because we have how many parcels?
58,000.
58,000. So a half a million dollars divided by 58. I mean, that's a tough way of doing it, but that's one way of doing it. It's a relatively small amount.
Right.
I had nobody, I was worried because I was an advocate for the shift. Because at the time, the road department had 100% reserve. They weren't using the money they were collecting. And they've since changed and they've brought it back down. And we kind of agree that about 60% reserve would be adequate because of the unpredictable nature of emergencies, and Tower Road is one of those examples where you need some capacity to do that. So we've been able to, interestingly, there's another way of changing the allocation of property taxes, and that's called a diversion. And the law allows road taxes to be diverted for road-related law enforcement. And you have to document everything. And it was a real headache. And I said, well, why do we have to go through that headache? Why don't we just shift? Because you don't have to document it because it's a levy shift. And nobody told me why. And my constituents' taxes went up. But again, it wasn't significant enough. Nobody pointed that out. How come my taxes went up so much?
Well,
And
that's the thing is I don't go into any meeting with anybody making budgetary decisions to try to help you decide what you're going to do. I just believe that everybody making decisions should understand how those decisions affect different things. And that's one thing is just understanding that the shift, while beneficial for some reasons, does have an effect on who's paying it and how much they're paying.
Yeah, in keeping with that, there's another reason, which is we learned how to monetize the landfill. And can you imagine where we'd be if we didn't have the landfill?
oh, Carolyn would be up here every meeting.
Yeah, and so in the years prior, the landfill was a liability, actually. And as we learn to monetize it, we've been able to not do a levy shift with impunity.
Well, I'm not sure it's accurate to say it was a liability because as an enterprise fund, it has to balance. So its revenues have to match the requirements. We weren't making any money, though. I mean, that's very clear.
Right.
The tenant way didn't quote, make us money. It was a service that
Yeah, liability, I don't know how much we can say, but you remember a meeting actually in this room where we were advised that there were some serious issues. And that spun off, let's figure out what we're gonna do with this thing. And that's when we learned, yeah, it's a problem on the one hand, but it's an advantage on the other. Let's capitalize on the advantage.
So are you asking us for direction?
Yes, I'm asking for direction because tomorrow I'm going to bring to you total revenues, total expenses as they stand right now. And I'm forecasting to use the maximum county levy amount that we have here in our revenue forecast for both roads, for roads and for general fund. And I made the assumption, no shifts, and the assumption that we would use our full capacity, levy capacity.
Before you answer that for the assessor, this is a time where the people need to understand that if their property values are assessed down, the general fund doesn't necessarily show a down.
Correct. So regardless of what assessed value does, whatever you guys decide your budget is and you pass in resolution, as long as I don't cap it based on statutory caps, that's what will get collected. So even if next year assessed value is cut in half, you would still collect the same amount of money. It doesn't depend on the assessed
Yeah.
value.
Oh, I would probably say that wouldn't be true. If your assessments went down 50%, we wouldn't be spending that much money. We wouldn't be able to spend that much money. There's no way.
We would collect the same amount.
Yeah,
Well, legally we could, but practically, there's no way. I mean, if everybody's assessment went down 50%, the taxes would double, and there's no way that would.
this is the tax
Taxes
rate
are
would,
exactly the same.
yeah.
So
You're-
let's say I go rogue, because I get frustrated with the state all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So let's say I just decided I was gonna do whatever I wanted to do and take my lashings.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm just gonna assess everybody at 50% instead of 100% because I think everybody's happier at 50%. As long as I'm equitable and fair
Mhm.
and do 50%, everybody's taxes would stay exactly the same.
Yeah.
It would not change at all.
Now,
It would double their rate, but it would collect
But their
exactly the
their
same
dollar amount.
Yep, their dollar amount would stay exactly the same.
the agencies that would hurt would be the fire districts.
I was gonna say, you would run into some, probably junior districts that would have some problems, because we'd start hitting rate maxes. And they would lose out. And I won't even go into that because I don't fully understand it. Janine could explain it to you about buying out junior districts and all that, but, again, the rate would just double, the same would be collected.
Is it true you're gonna give Janine a PhD?
She is very good. She's been doing this for a very long time and she's very good at levies. Unfortunately, I gave her some vacation. So.
Well, the spreadsheet is fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, this is from you guys.
Yeah.
No, I meant your spreadsheet where you determine things. That's quite a complex piece.
Well, and there's so many intricacies that go into levies. It is very beneficial for us to have somebody that is very good at doing it. So.
So Emily, I've got a question on the assessment process. When one of the mills has a major capital improvement, when do we feel the impact of the value of that new building? Is it as they build and you assume there's value added, or once the building is completed and the value is actually demonstrated be?
So as a building is being built, specifically ones that take a long time, there is value being added as progress is made. So once a year, we do new construction. So whatever state that building is at while we're doing new construction, we will capture that. So let's say we go out there and they're 30% complete with the building, 30% of that value would get added. And then next year, let's say we go out and they're 60%, we add that additional 30%. And then when they're complete, we complete it. But that would show up in your new construction.
Okay.
Allocation.
And I assume that's a highly non-linear scale, right? A third done just means I spent a third of the money, but I'm still 80% to go.
Well, so we have charts that break down the progression of buildings. So let's say we walk in and they've got framing done, they've got this, that, and the other. We can put that on a chart and it will say, okay, based on this information, it's roughly this complete.
I'm sure that's state informed, the charts. I mean, they're developed.
Actually, that comes from Marshall and Swift. It's a nationally
Okay. Yeah.
recognized.
Okay. The reason I asked is that if memory serves me correct, we've got two major developments in the works, the box plant at
West Rock.
Bad Rock,
West Rock.
West Rock.
West Rock.
Okay. And then I think the paper line out at NORPAC, which should be pretty close to being
Don't
done.
forget the divert plan.
The divert plan is coming online later, but those two projects haven't been fully, they're not at 100% yet. Because they're in
I don't
process.
think they're 100%. And when it comes to the industrial sites, I also want to note that this is kind of getting away from budget, but
Mhm.
there are multiple ways to assess property or to value property, especially with commercial. We don't always use the direct cost approach on valuing property. That doesn't always give you the actual value of the property, of what it cost. And so I'm not entirely sure that you would see a 1-for-1 value change if we're doing an income approach on the income producing properties. So
You still have to figure out what the fair market
Right.
would be for a box plant when there's only one box plant in the state. Right? I mean, there's a little challenge to figure out the fair market, but you have to go nationwide, I suppose, or whatever the law allows. They've got this system prescribed for you.
we've got to figure it out.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what's the fair market value of a box plant?
Yeah,
Don't say it on record.
yeah.
Not enough.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just saying fair market value among other things is one of those things. And that's why you have a hard time with trying to tell people it's your best guess at a market value. When I go to a realtor and I want to sell my house, I'm going to tell them, edge it up.
Well, and that's it. Isn't an appraisal is an opinion of value.
Right, there's
It's
nothing
not black and
exact.
white. Yep. You
Yeah.
ask two appraisers, you're gonna get two different.
Yeah.
Commissioner, with all due respect, that's true unless your last name is Trump.
You know, you
That's why
don't
he's
get
on
true
trial,
value
right?
till it
Wait.
sells.
My last name is Trump.
No, we find that often. We'll have people call in one year and want their assessed value lowered, and then the next year they decide to sell it and they call in and ask us to raise it. So we don't make determinations
Right.
like
Yeah.
that. So
Um,
back to budget.
Kathy, from
Yes.
from
So-
my perspective, just mine, I would tell you the same thing I told you the other day. Work the budget with your assumptions. As long as we understand the assumptions when we're looking at the whole budget, then we can make adjustments if we want to at that point in time.
Right. And I just wanted to be able to show you, this is the number that I'll be using in my assumptions. For general fund, it's the 20,815,000. And for road fund, it's going to be the 14 million levy amount.
So-
With no shift.
There are these sort of key decisions and I think if you'll allow me, I think we need to decide them, maybe even here today as to how we're going to deal with that. For example, I think the road levy shift, we're not going to do that. It's my guess, right? And we can decide here right now and say there will be no road levy shift.
Well, I
That would be my guess.
I think, yeah, you can announce how you feel, but we haven't had a public hearing and that might get us in trouble if we announce ahead of time, ahead of a public hearing, that we're not going to do this or we're going to do that.
But we can't have a public hearing unless we have a straw man. And she's trying to put together a straw man that can be heard. Otherwise, we'll never get the budget done. At the end, it'll be presented to the public. And by then, hopefully, we've had all the arguments taken care of, so we know how to respond, and we can always change based on the arguments, but we got to be someplace.
My preference, what I'd like to see are figures that would work out the levy without the 1%. Go ahead and bank that. I think if your numbers are correct, that it'd still be higher than 22.
This is one thing that I don't recall decently. When we bank the 1%, what are we banking?
The capacity. So this is what
Yeah.
Kathy and I were talking about. And you guys don't have this. This is a worksheet we send out to the people doing the budget work. But at the top, it shows the highest lawful levy. So even though you guys didn't take the highest before, every year, the worksheet starts with that highest lawful levy, and then it adds the 1% and it adds the new construction. And so it's just keeping it there, and it's adding the 1% every year. So even if you don't take it, we're going to start your calculation next year as if you did take it.
We are not really banking 1% as a percentage. We're banking the dollar amount. And
Yeah.
so if we could have taken $200,000 this year and next year assessed values climb all over the place, we're not at 1%, we're $200,000. Okay, that's all I wanted to understand.
And my recommendation is based upon what I'm seeing in our request and in what we anticipate for expenses. I'm saying as far as budget, I'm recommending that you do take your capacity, you go all the way to your capacity based upon the things that we're seeing in our expenses that we're going to be faced with after collective bargaining, things like that. So if it's okay, I'm going to use the 20,815,000 in our estimates for revenue.
Hey, except our colleague ventured to guess he didn't want the 1%. I can argue both sides, which makes it very difficult for me to decide what is real.
Right.
What you say is completely spot on. People don't realize while we have a 1% cap, there's nothing else around us ever that has a 1% cap. And the argument that some folks would say, been taxed enough already, just start to pull in the belt. And you'll never pull in the belt by taking more taxes. However, this one is well below what, I mean, this would have, even if we took the 1%, it would amount to a belt tightening exercise. And I think it was Thomas Sowell said he can't think of a more stupid system than one in which the decision makers don't pay the penalty. And what we have are decision makers all over the place who think it's not my money, it's their money, so it's free money. How do we break that?
Yeah, that's always tough because I have a fundamental belief that money in the taxpayer's hand generates much more than money in our hand.
That's a fact, I think,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it.
worldwide.
Yeah. So I could go with our colleague if we didn't want that 1% in this assumption. We can, when we see the final numbers, we can figure that out.
Yeah, I can lay out what the 1% is.
So just to be sure I understand, you would take out the 1%, And we don't do a catch up from 22. So that would be roughly 500,000.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay,
because you have some construction, new construction that's built into this number as well.
Yeah.
So levy amount.
I'm okay with that.
We can at least look at the numbers.
Yeah.
How it works
Yep.
out.
Okay. Same for road.
Now, the deadline for setting the levy is that Wednesday? Is that the 1st of November or is it the
No,
1st of
No,
December?
it's November 30th.
November 30th, okay.
And we're going to have a special public hearing, which has already been publicized to be November the 28th, I believe.
Sounds about right, yeah.
So it's your Tuesday meeting, the 28th. That's our public hearing. And it's been publicized already for setting the actual levies. Okay,
In past history that, like to you, Dennis, we've gotten to the point where we present the budget to the public, and I don't recall any big discussions. I do recall once that Joe Gardner voted against it because he didn't want to shift
Right.
the road fund.
That was 1 year and I think he opposed it just once.
Yeah,
And then it worked out. But once the road department changed their policies and dropped down their ending fund balance, then we just went away from the shift at all.
yeah.
When I joined, the diversion was the adjustment to the property tax. And like I said, I thought it wasn't worth the money to document it, and it was a relatively small amount. And so that's when I brought up the shift, and we did that for 5 or 6 years.
I don't think we had much choice back then, but we do now. And the one thing about the road fund is at the end of the day, a citizen can stand there and say, well, we built that bridge or we fixed those potholes. And when it goes into the general fund, I'm not sure what you can say as clearly as that.
And we have taken some pretty important steps to restructure the Public Works Department. I mean, we're on our 3rd engineer since I first came. So
I like to
you
think
know,
that
so
we're
the
our
so the
last
direction has
engineer.
changed. The direction has changed, and which is good. And I am definitely pleased with how that's all being managed and the projects that we're able to tackle each year and the grants we're able to get and leverage those revenues. So besides, Susan's listening to us, and I want
No, she is.
to add a girl.
okay. So that's really the only things that I had today, was just to make sure that I have my direction straight on levy amounts that are included in our revenues. And then tomorrow we'll have a workshop in the afternoon at 1:30 to actually show total revenues, total anticipated expenses. And I will also bring forth all the requests for funding to make sure that I have, that we go through those to make sure what's included and what's.
We're gonna have to work, earn our salary tomorrow then, right?
We're
Those
gonna
are some
have,
tough
we're gonna have a
decisions.
long meeting
Well,
tomorrow.
it is important. It would also be helpful, to me, if you could calculate what our policy is for ending fund balances. If I remember correctly, it's the 1 month salary. Just so that we have that in mind as kind
I
of
think
the,
it's, I think
you have
it's,
to have that as a minimum. And
yeah, I think it's a percent.
Yeah,
It's 8%.
8.2 or 8.4, something like that, whatever it works out.
I
Yes.
thought it was closer to 2 months than a month.
Well, that's been our past practice, but the policy, I don't think we've changed the policy.
Oh, Yeah, I'm okay not changing the policy. I'm okay not changing to 2 months.
The only thing that we did this year was your cumulative, your budget stabilization fund. We said we would not contribute to the budget stabilization fund once we met 2 months of fund balance. I think that's what you're remembering.
2 months.
I can't remember. I don't remember that, but
Okay, anything else you want to see tomorrow when I bring forth everything?
I think so. No,
No, although I'm thinking
that's scary enough.
it's a scary day tomorrow. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking 3 months would be more my style on the reserve stuff. And in the past, I felt that's dollars that aren't doing anything for us, but with our new investment policy, it's not quite so severe.
Mm.
We're still losing to inflation, I'm pretty sure, but rainy day funds, I mean, my own personal rainy day funds are much longer than 2 months.
Okay,
Why is Emily smirking?
I just want to go.
I thought you enjoyed it here. Sorta. We don't see enough of you up here.
Today,
Now you know how we all feel.
Okay. We all good?
I think so.
Yeah? No.
Yeah, I don't see any,
We don't have public service coming in today.
no. They all,
We've got the Board of Health tomorrow, right?
Board of Health at 10 tomorrow. See if we can get through the agenda before 10. Yeah.
That'll be, it was pretty light, but there,
It looked pretty decent. Sometimes HHS stuff can get participation and comments, so.
yeah.
Any other miscellaneous? I don't see any hands. We'll adjourn. Thanks, Kathy.